Imagine for a second that you have just unboxed a brand new iPad mini 8. You lift it out of the box, peel off that satisfying paper wrapper, and hold it in your hands. It feels familiar, yet something is wrong. You run your finger along the bottom edge to find the charging port. It's there, but then you slide your finger to the corner where the speaker grill should be. There is nothing, just smooth, cold aluminum. You check the top. Nothing. You check the sides. Nothing. It is a seamless, unbroken slab of glass and metal. You might panic for a second. Did they forget the speakers? Did they assume everyone uses AirPods now? Then, you tap the screen. You open YouTube. You hit play on a movie trailer. And suddenly, the device itself wakes up. The sound doesn't shoot out of a hole. It erupts from the screen. The glass under your fingers starts to hum with energy. The voices in the movie sound like they're coming literally from the actor's mouth. The explosion in the background vibrates through the chassis, making your hands feel the impact. The iPad hasn't lost its speakers. The iPad is the speaker. This sounds like science fiction, but it is the very real, very controversial rumor surrounding the next generation of Apple's smallest tablet. If the leaks and patent filings are true, the iPad mini 8 could be the device that finally kills the traditional speaker grill. In this video, we are going to do a deep dive into the invisible technology that makes this possible. We're going to explain the physics of how a solid piece of glass can play music, why Apple is obsessed with removing holes from your devices, the massive risks involved in this change, and why this might be the first step toward a completely portless iPhone future. This is not just a rumor about a tablet. This is a story about the future of how we interact with sound. Let's start with the basics. Why would Apple do this? To understand the future, we have to look at the past. Apple hates holes. They hate buttons. They hate seams. If you look at the design history of Johnny Ive and the team that succeeded him, their ultimate goal has always been what they call the infinity pool effect. They want a device that looks like a single, magical object, not a collection of parts screwed together. They killed the headphone jack to make the iPhone more water-resistant and to push wireless audio. They killed the home button to make the screen bigger. They killed the SIM tray in the US to save internal space. The speaker grill is one of the last ugly parts left on the device. Speaker grills are problematic for a lot of reasons. They are magnets for dust and pocket lint. If you have ever looked closely at your phone's speaker holes after a year of use, you know it is gross. They're also the biggest weakness when it comes to water. Water resistance relies on mesh and rubber gaskets behind those holes. If that mesh fails, your device is dead. By removing the holes entirely, Apple can create a device that is essentially a sealed vault. So, how do you make sound without a hole? To understand this, you need to understand how a normal speaker works. In a traditional speaker, like the one in your current phone, there's a cone made of paper or plastic. This cone is attached to a coil of wire that sits inside a magnet. When you play music, electricity flows through the wire, creating a magnetic field. This pushes the coil back and forth, moving the cone. The cone pushes the air. The moving air hits your eardrum, and your brain hears sound. It is a piston. It moves in and out. It needs air to move, which is why you need a grill. The technology rumored for the iPad mini 8 is completely different. It is called a distributed mode loudspeaker or a mechanically actuated panel. Instead of a cone pushing air through a hole, Apple would place small motors, called actuators, directly onto the back of the display or the aluminum casing. These actuators are often made of piezoelectric crystals. When you run electricity through these crystals, they expand and contract instantly. When these actuators vibrate, they don't push air like a piston. Instead, they send microscopic vibrations through the material of the iPad itself. They turn the glass screen into a violin string. The entire surface becomes the diaphragm. The air touching the screen vibrates, and that creates the sound wave. You don't need a hole because the surface you're looking at is the thing making the noise. This isn't just a theory. You have probably seen it before, even if you didn't realize it. Sony has been doing this for years in their high-end OLED TVs. They call it acoustic surface audio. If you walk into an electronics store and touch the screen of a Sony OLED while it's playing, you can feel it buzzing. The advantage on a TV is incredible. In a normal TV, the speakers are at the bottom, pointing down. The actors are talking at the top of the screen, but their voices are coming from your feet. It creates a disconnect. With a vibrating screen, the sound comes from the picture. If a character is on the left side of the screen vibrates. It links the visual and the audio perfectly. Apple wants to bring this immersion to the iPad mini. Imagine playing a game where the sound of footsteps actually moves across the glass under your thumbs. Imagine a FaceTime call where the other person's voice feels like it is emanating from their eyes. It adds a tactile layer to the experience that normal speakers just cannot match. However, there's a reason why this technology hasn't taken over the world yet. There's a reason why Samsung and Google haven't done this on their tablets. It comes with two massive, terrifying engineering challenges. If Apple gets these wrong, the iPad mini 8 will be a disaster. The first challenge is the hand problem. A TV is easy because you don't touch it. You hang on the wall and leave it alone. An iPad is a handheld device. You hold it. You rest it on your stomach. You prop it up on a blanket. The physics of vibration are very sensitive. If you grab a ringing bell, the sound stops immediately. That is called dampening. Your soft, squishy hand absorbs the energy. If the entire screen is the speaker, and you put your thumbs on the screen to play a game, you are effectively muting the speaker. You are the silencer. If Apple releases a tablet that sounds muffled every time you pick it up, people will return it in droves. But Apple has a patent for this. This is where the genius comes in. The patent describes a system of zones. Instead of vibrating the whole screen as one big piece, Apple could divide the display into invisible subpanels. They would use the touch sensors and the accelerometer to figure out exactly how you are holding the device. If the iPad detects your hand is gripping the bottom left corner, it will instantly cut power to the actuators in that corner. It will route the audio to the top right corner and the center, where your hands aren't touching. It could do this dynamically in real time. As you shift your grip, the sound shifts around your fingers like water flowing around a rock. It ensures that the vibrating part of the screen is always the part that is free to move. This is the kind of over-engineered solution that Apple loves. The second challenge is the bass problem. Physics is cruel. To make deep, thumping bass, you need to move a lot of air. You need a big cone moving a long distance. A stiff, flat sheet of glass is really good at high frequencies, voices, violins, glass breaking. It is terrible at low frequencies, drums, explosions, bass drops. This is why the LG G8 smartphone, which tried this technology years ago, failed miserably. It sounded tinny. It sounded like a cheap radio. Sony solves this on their TVs by cheating. They put a big, traditional subwoofer in the back of the TV stand to handle the bass, while the screen handles the voices. The iPad mini doesn't have room for a subwoofer. So how does Apple fix this? They rely on psychoacoustics. This is the science of tricking the human brain. If you listen to a MacBook Air, it sounds like it has bass, but the speakers are tiny. Apple uses software to amplify certain harmonics that trick your ear into hearing a low note that isn't actually there. It's an auditory illusion. For the iPad mini 8, Apple would likely use a hybrid system. They might use the screen for the crisp, clear vocals, but hide a sealed, internal woofer deep inside the chassis that uses the air volume of the device itself to create resonance. The whole iPad would act as a resonance chamber to give you that warmth, while the screen gives you the clarity. Let's talk about the implications for durability. This is the biggest selling point for the average user. The current iPad mini is delicate. If you drop in the bath, it is game over. If you take it to the beach and sand gets in the grill, the speaker starts crackling F. Or ever. An iPad mini with invisible speakers could be the first truly adventure-proof iPad. Without holes, Apple can seal the chassis with heavy-duty adhesive. We could see an IP68 rating, which is the standard for iPhones. This means you could submerge the iPad in 6 meters of water for 30 minutes, and it would be fine. You could read a book in the tub without fear. You could use it in a dusty workshop or a kitchen full of flour and just rinse it off under the tap when you're done. For a device that is meant to be tossed in a bag and taken everywhere, this durability upgrade is arguably more important than the sound quality itself. There is also the matter of internal space. We often forget that air is precious inside a mobile device. A traditional speaker module is a big, hollow box. It takes up a huge amount of room that could be used for battery. By switching to flat actuators that are paper-thin, Apple recovers that volume. The current iPad mini has terrible battery life compared to the Pro models. It's just physics, the battery is small. If deleting the speakers gives them 10% more room for battery cells, that could mean an extra hour of screen-on time. Or it could make room for the cameras from the iPhone Pro or the haptic engines needed for better gaming feedback. It allows the engineers to play a game of Tetris inside the device, swapping empty air for dense, useful components. But we have to look at the downsides. We have to be realistic. There's a privacy concern here that nobody talks about. Traditional speakers are directional. They shoot sound at you. Vibrating panels are omnidirectional. The back of the iPad vibrates just as much as the front. This means that if you're watching a video in a quiet room, the person sitting behind you might hear it just as clearly as you do. The sound leak on these types of panels is historically very high. If you're on a private FaceTime call, the whole room becomes the receiver. Apple will need to use noise cancellation algorithms to fight this, essentially using the microphones to listen to the leak and generating anti-sound to cancel it out for people nearby. And then there is the price. New technology is expensive. The iPad mini has always been in a weird spot. It isn't cheap, but it isn't pro-priced. Custom OLED panels with integrated piezoelectric actuators are not off-the-shelf parts. This isn't something you buy from a generic supplier. This is bespoke engineering. This could push the price of the iPad mini up significantly. We might be looking at a price hike that takes the mini out of the casual tablet territory and firmly into the premium bracket. Is it worth waiting for? That is the question on everyone's mind. If you need an iPad right now, the current Mini 6 is a great device. But it is aging. The screen has jelly scrolling issues. The chip is getting older. The battery life is mediocre. The iPad Mini 8, with this rumored technology, represents a generational leap. It isn't just a spec bump. It is a new form factor. It is the realization of the slab of glass dream. If you're the kind of person who loves cutting-edge tech, the kind of person who bought the first Retina MacBook or the first Face ID iPhone, this is a device for you. It will be a conversation starter. It will feel futuristic. But if you're an audiophile, if you care deeply about sound fidelity, you should be skeptical. Physics is hard to beat. There's a very real chance that the first generation of this tech sounds worse than the old speakers. It might sound thinner. It might vibrate your fingers in a way that feels annoying after 20 minutes of gaming. There's a risk that this is a case of design over function, where Apple makes something look prettier but work worse. However, Apple rarely misses twice. They learn from the butterfly keyboard. They learn from the touch bar. They usually don't implement a radical hardware change unless they're 99% sure it works. The fact that they have been sitting on these patents for a decade suggests they haven't rushed this. They have been waiting for the actuators to get strong enough and small enough. This technology also signals something huge for the iPhone. The iPad mini is often a testing ground. It is low volume enough that if there are manufacturing issues, it doesn't destroy Apple's bottom line. If invisible speakers work on the Mini, you can bet your house that they will be on the iPhone 18 or 19. This is the path to the portless phone. No charging port, MagSafe. No SIM slot, eSIM. No buttons, haptic sides. And now, no speaker holes. A completely sealed, waterproof, dust-proof marble of technology. The iPad Mini 8 is the canary in the coal mine for that future. So, when can we expect this? The timeline is shifting. Originally, analysts thought 2025. Now, with the complexity of the OLED panel supply chain, many are pointing to 2026. That is a long wait. In the tech world, that is an eternity. But for a feature this radical, the wait might be necessary. In conclusion, the iPad Mini 8 rumors paint a picture of a device that is trying to be more than just a small screen. It is trying to redefine the physical construction of a computer. By turning the screen into the speaker, Apple is trying to merge the digital and the physical in a way we haven't seen before. It solves the waterproofing issue. It solves the dust issue. It solves the design continuity issue. but it creates a massive acoustic challenge that will require every ounce of Apple's engineering magic to solve. My best opinion on this product. Honestly, I think this is exactly what the iPad mini needs. The mini has always been an awkward middle child. It isn't a phone, and it isn't a work laptop. By leaning into this futuristic, robust, waterproof slab design, it carves out a new identity as the ultimate take-anywhere consumption device. Think about it. The mini is the perfect size for reading in the bath, for following recipes in a messy kitchen, or for travelers, making it essentially waterproof and hole-free leans into that use case perfectly. I am worried about the sound quality for music, but let's be real, most of us use headphones for serious listening anyway. If the speakers are good enough for YouTube and TikTok, but the device becomes virtually indestructible against water and dust, that is a trade-off I will take every single day of the week. It differentiates the Mini from the Air and the Pro. It makes it the field iPad, and that is a brilliant marketing move. If you liked this deep dive into the invisible future of Apple's audio, make sure you subscribe to the channel, share this video with your fellow Apple geeks, and hit the bell icon so you're the first to know when this sci-fi tech becomes reality. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.